everyone, I'm Kate Sitka. Welcome back to the Joyful Telepathy podcast. This is a very special one because I'm recording a YouTube video, and this is the first time I've done anything like this, so if you want to hop on over to my YouTube channel, if you're listening to this on the Joyful Telepathy podcast feed, please click the link below, and if you're watching me on YouTube, well then you're already here. You've already found me. So the reason why I wanted to do this on video is because I've got a few visual aids and I wanted to show them to you. So welcome to my seldom used YouTube channel. I do hope that you enjoy it. You can enjoy the videos of Rupert and Mikey from when they were kittens. I did a lot of recording then. So let's get right to it. So first thing I wanted to talk about today is why I no longer smudge my house. This is a technique of clearing energy. It's used to disrupt any of the, first of all, we're going to say negative energy. There's no such thing as really good and bad energy. Different types of energy have different purposes. But just like there's no kinds of good and bad dirt, we want to clean our house every once in a while. Often people will hear of smudging in context of hauntings, trying to clear troublesome spirits, consciousnesses that have decided to stick around rather than moving on to the other side. The first one that comes to mind is, what was his name? Adam something. If you look on Twitter, the hashtag Dear David, you're going to come up, you'll find that haunting story that I'm talking about. And many thousands of Twitter followers advised Adam you should smudge your house. So you should burn sage in your house. And he says, I burned the sage and it didn't work. By the way, I did a podcast episode on Dear David last year when he really started posting a lot of the tweets and some neat videos of the paranormal phenomena that he was experiencing. If you want to listen to the podcast episode on Dear David, I will link it below. Back to smudging. Now, smudging is specifically referring to a First Nations ritual, which involves specifically burning sage, handling it in a very specific way, and also handling the smoke in a very specific way. This ritual has been appropriated by psychics everywhere. I am still growing in my understanding of cultural appropriation, although I really should have known better. I did grow up around some First Nations people. One of my high school friends who was in the drama club with me was Ojibwe, and I knew that she was First Nations, but I didn't have an understanding of her culture until we did a play together where the director showed us how to make a giant dream catcher on stage, and the play was about dreams. So it seemed like it would be appropriate. Well, my friend actually got quite furious with the teacher, and he was arguing with her, but she made her point very firmly, which was dream catchers are an Ojibwe thing. They originated with her people. And if you see a dream catcher somewhere, that's a concept that's traveled far and wide from the Ojibwe culture. So if someone is making dream catchers and selling dream catchers, they are actually perpetuating a spiritual harm against Ojibwe folks who have been saying for hundreds of years, hey, stop stealing our traditions, stop stealing our spiritual things. Now, I'm not an expert on cultural appropriation. If you want to learn more on cultural appropriation, I would suggest that you do some Googling, do some research on yourself. I really encourage you to do that, especially if you are a white lady like me, or if you're a white guy, because we live in a predominantly white, culturally white society, Eurocentric society, Christian-esque society. So our thoughts and ideas and our opinions and our sense of entitlement is influenced by the society that we live in. And I like to disrupt that a little bit, which is why I'm doing this video, because energy clearing rituals are extremely important when you're going to be doing psychic work. And really, they're extremely important in many different cultures, not specifically for people that do spiritual work, but for everyday, like an everyday cleaning. And for us white folks, if we want to look further back into our history, we will probably find some, pre-Christian traditions there. In going back in my line, which is like a Germanic Scottish tradition, Scottish heritage is where I come from. Scottish on my mother's side, German on my father's side. There is a Scottish tradition where every spring you're going to cut Scotch broom. It's this plant that grows everywhere. It's actually kind of invasive out here. And you make a broom from it and you sweep your house in a very specific way, back to front, and then you place the broom over your doorway, and this helps to protect your house for the season. So that's just one way of clearing your living space energetically. So I'm bringing this up because I want to say, when I say I'm no longer smudging, I'm not saying that I am no longer clearing my house energetically. I am just no longer using this specific ritual that is extremely popular with white spiritual women. And I would like for us to all to look at ourselves. And by the way, hi, my people of color friends. I know that you're out there, and I really appreciate it. I am speaking mostly to the white folks. I think most of my audience is white spiritual people at this point. Maybe have come from a Christian background like myself. My family was Protestant, but we weren't particularly religious, and my mother didn't renounce her Christianity, but she did convert to Buddhism, and I got a lot of spiritual education and exposure through my mother, who was really interested in different things, in different spiritual traditions. So I find that a lot of the people that are attracted to me and my work have similar backgrounds, but while we're very interested in other cultures, and I love studying other cultures and finding the ways in which cultures who were not connected with each other at all have come to really similar truths, because those are the universal truths that I like to search for. And one of the things that does come up in many different cultures is how to energetically clear your space. So again, I'm bringing this up to say, I'm not saying you shouldn't energetically clear your space. I think you really should, and you will feel the difference. It's very good. Just don't smudge, unless you're First Nations, and you don't, of course, you wouldn't need me to say, don't smudge. So obviously I'm not talking to First Nations folks. I'm talking to other spiritual, new agey white people. I'm saying, let's stop stealing rituals from other cultures, because we have our own culture, and let's learn about our own heritage. Let's look into our own heritage and become interested in that, because it's just as powerful. I think that those of us who are descended from colonizers and are looking for ways to do less harm in these places in which we were born into, we are really occupiers at this point. We're looking for ways to help, to really help repair and help be supportive, and to try to stop the destructive, oppressive cycle of whiteness in North America. I'll go into another little aside here, because those who listen to the podcast know that I do this a lot. In Northern Ontario, where I grew up, the First Nations folks, different backgrounds, obviously different cultures of First Nations folks, to varying degrees, were very active, and I have so much respect and admiration for the Mohawk people in particular, because man, did they get a lot accomplished. They took back big chunks of their land, and have reclaimed so much of what was taken by force from their ancestors, and I have a lot of respect for that. I actually remember I had to cancel a trip to go home and visit my family, because the Mohawk people were doing a railroad blockade at that point, and I couldn't travel. And I didn't. And at the time, I was thinking, well, wow, what a powerful thing. I I really didn't mind. I had to change my plans, but I supported what the Mohawk people were doing and what they have been doing in the last few years, which, really needs to be done. And they're, they are just blazing the trail. They're not the only ones doing this work out here, but because out here in British Columbia, where I am now, I'm hearing rumblings of similar things. But I do know that the Mohawk folks in Northern Ontario have been doing fundraising so that they can do forensic digs on the sites of areas where there were residential schools, because this was a part of the genocide that Canadians don't really like to talk about. We like to think white people built this country, and this is a great country because white people came here and built it. And there was people here before the white ancestors came here, and the white folks that came here all participated in one way or another in invading and in occupying this land. And the surviving First Nations people who, after hundreds of years, have preserved so much of their culture despite this, a century-long effort to eradicate them. We need to have a lot of respect for the survivors, which is why, again, I'm going to come back to why I don't smudge and why you will not see any dream catchers here. By the way, that drum is a pagan drum. That's not, there are drums that look similar to that out here, and that's not a First Nations thing. That's, it's a pagan drum that was given to me by a priestess friend of mine, and I painted it myself. So, anyway, the Mohawk people doing the forensic dig, what they're doing whenever they find the remains of children, because the death toll at these residential schools was extraordinarily high, and it was acceptable. There are government documents showing that a death rate of between 30 to 50% of the children at these schools was considered acceptable. No big deal if 30 to 50% of the children at these schools die, which is completely unacceptable. Can you imagine going to a school where half of the kids you went to school with died? And I'm not going to, at this point, get into what they died of. I encourage you to educate yourself if you don't know these things. And that's not what this video is about, but I want to be respectful of the history in my country and the damage that has historically been done. We, us spiritual white folks, we don't get to sit here in a ball of light and say, I am separate from all of the harm that was done before me. Because if you are a white person like me, you're going to be walking through the world as a white person. You're going to be benefiting from a lot of things that you might not be aware of. You might be getting car loans or apartment leases or mortgages that give you affordable housing, that give you or access to housing at all, or reliable transportation. You might be able to live in areas that have a certain level of food security. There's just really so much ignorance in the white spiritual world, in this new age spiritual world that I am a part of. There's so much ignorance about the gross advantages that we have compared to folks who are not white. So I think it's really, as spiritual people, we have a responsibility to educate ourselves on the world that we live in and the history that we are standing upon. We are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, the shoulders of everyone in history who has gone before us, and who has either survived or died. And we need to honor that history. It's extremely important, because when we talk, working especially as a psychic, when we talk, my job as a medium is to help people talk to their relatives or their loved ones who have passed. We literally work in the past, and it is ridiculous to me that spiritual white folks can wrap ourselves in a ball of light and say, well, I mean no harm. I'm not racist. If you're coming at me telling me I'm racist, you're being negative and that's your problem. I'm going to... Well, that was... amateur. Did I mention it's my first YouTube video? Okay. Anyway, that's what I see a lot of spiritual white folks, especially spiritual white women, doing whenever I will come forward and say, hey, maybe that meme that you posted on Facebook, what spirit animal is yours? And it's got all of this First Nations art, that may not be appropriate to share for these reasons. I think you should look into it. I have never once received a positive response, and it doesn't matter how kindly, how compassionately, whether I post it publicly, whether I send them a private message, whether I email them, whether I offer to talk to them. Generally, people don't have a positive response. When you talk to them one-on-one, people immediately get defensive. So that's why, in part, why I want to deal with this over a podcast and over a YouTube video, because I'm hoping that by not speaking directly to someone, that more people are going to come on board. And by the way, I get much more in depth with this in my telepathic communication with animals and spirit course, where I teach all of the fundamentals of how to do what I do and what I consider essentials in order to do this work, what you need in order to be safe, in order to keep others safe, in order to be respectful, and in order to be accurate, and to be able to continue to do this for years without burning out, without experiencing sleep disturbances and a lot of the other really common things that come with sensitizing yourself and working in this kind of energy. So this is really another reason why I'm talking about why I don't smudge, because this is a part of a psychic protection thing for me. Because I'm not stealing from somebody else's history by choosing to go back into my own heritage and research what my ancestors used to do. I'm entitled to that. That's my birthright. That's my heritage. And there is a certain, not only are you doing spiritual harm when you appropriate rituals from other cultures, not only are you doing spiritual harm to continuing to perpetuate spiritual harm on this culture by stealing ritual without permission, you're actually perpetuating that harm on yourself too. You are making yourself a victimizer. Without, even if you don't acknowledge it, and it's actually worse if you're not wanting to acknowledge it. If someone screws up the courage, especially if it is someone who is a visible minority and maybe not a well-meaning white person like myself trying to do my share of the emotional labor, if you are being approached by an actual minority person, a visible minority person of color, who is saying, hey, what you're doing is not cool, you need to be quiet and listen and say, I'm really sorry, can you please tell me more? I really want to hear more about your culture. I want to hear more about why this is special and something that should be kept just for I want to completely understand, and I will take this forward to other people. It's called elevating privileged voices, and this is a part of the spiritual, energetic and spiritual work that is really an important part of participating in healing right now. So anyway, without further ado, that is how many minutes am I into it here? Okay, I'm into about 20 minutes of talking, which is it's really typical of me. Probably all the YouTube watchers have clicked away at this point. Bye, people. So I'm going to show you what I used to do. Now, whatever you use with your energy clearing ritual, there are a few basic principles. Why people like to burn things to clear the room and to clear energy. Part of it is the principle of the rising smoke. So you're creating an energy that moves upwards. You can create that exact same energy with a broom. It doesn't even have to be a broom that you've made yourself. It could be a broom that you like. It could be, as long as it's a broom you like. You don't want to take a broom that every time you touch it you hate it because you're thinking how much you hate cleaning the house. Like, you can keep a special little ritual broom or make one. But you can do, sweeping motions with the broom, and you can sweep upwards from the floor upwards to the ceiling. Understand that it's the motion that is creating this energy that's agitating any stagnated energy that is sitting there. And I talk more about the type of energy and what exactly is sitting there and that you're going to be moving. Talk about it in my course, Telepathic Communication with Animals and Spirit, if you want to learn more. Or, you know, subscribe to the channel. Heck, why not? I think this is not going to be my last YouTube video. Also, you can subscribe to the podcast. I will also link it below. Heck, read the blog. I'll link that below too. Anyway, there's my little self-promotion aside. So, as I said before, I like to really look for the consistencies, the universal truths that appear in lots of different cultures. So when you understand the principles, then you can work with them any way that you want. So I'm going to explain what the smudging ritual is, as has been taught by other spiritual white women. So I'm going to explain what is out here. This is not, by the way, the actual First Nations ritual. It is not correct, because the spiritual white women who are all teaching each other don't actually know what we were talking about. And by the way, I never used to do this until I moved out here to the West Coast, and I thought I would try it before I fully understood the white person to First Nations person politics that it was really, and the spiritual harm that it was really potentially doing. But it never actually felt quite right. I'd been using many other techniques to clear my space, and this was just something that I wanted to try it for a while, and I did it a few times over the course of a few years, and it never really felt quite right, and it took me a while to really understand what it was. But I have seen very well-known psychics actually perform a version of this ritual, and so I'm going to talk about it. Teresa Caputo is one that really comes to mind. I saw her do this on the TV show. She didn't completely explain what it was, and there were variations on the theme, but anyway, I'm going to show you. So one of the tools that is consistently used is an abalone shell. So this is, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that just like, it's iridescent on the inside. It has this gorgeous infinite spiral coming out. It's a beautiful pinkish color, but because it's iridescent, it actually has rainbows on the inside. So why this particular shell is used, and by the way, this is what I'm going to say next. This did come directly from a local First Nations person, explaining just the symbolism and the sacredness of the abalone shell, which is used in many pieces of regalia out here. The symbolism of this beautiful iridescent, I'm just going to show that to you again, symbols the other side. Symbolizes the spirit world. It's a full spectrum, it symbolizes full spectrum light. And the shape of the shell, this one's a little bit worn from, here I'll show you my little one. This one's a little bit, because it's so small you can see, I wonder if it will focus for you. Can you see? Oh, it's still focused on me. Newbie YouTuber! There we go. There we go. Now you can kind of see it. So you can see how the spiral just goes down. The shell grows out from this center spot. That center point is infinity. It's this infinite possibility, infinite creation. It's such a powerful, such a beautiful symbol of life and growth and the golden ratio. Anyway, I completely understand why this is used as a symbol, as a tool to connect with the other side, to speak with the other side. So that's why abalone shells. Now these shells, by the way, I never purchase anything to do my spiritual cleansing because it's never really felt quite right. There's a grounding element to clearing your space, and I prefer to use tools that I have found or made myself, because when you go out to make a broom, or to collect some cedar or some other element to burn in your house, you're just the act of going out there and collecting those materials, you are already grounding. You're getting into that spiritual mindset. You're grounding, you're becoming self-aware, you're aware of your body, you're thanking the plants and the trees as you're taking these materials. So I have always used found materials in my energy clearing rituals. So these abalone shells that I have, these were all found. They were found or they were given to me. And that's an element that you can incorporate into your own spiritual practice. Understand that no matter where you are in the world, nature has a wonderful way of creating complete environments no matter where you are. Every single area in the world is going to have medicinal plants that cover similar problems. So for those of us in Canada that are using tea tree oil, that's ridiculous. Why are we using an oil from Australia when our pine trees create this wonderful sap that does the exact same thing? So just because something from the rainforest does something remarkable, there's probably something in your natural environment that suits the same purpose. Nature has created complete ecosystems for us. So if you are in an area that does not have natural occurring abalone shells or cedar or sage, figure out what does grow naturally there and experiment with those materials yourself. I'm also extremely lucky. I'm going to take a quick sip here. I'm also extremely lucky to live in an area where eagles absolutely thrive. If you see someone selling eagle feathers, please report them. It's illegal. The eagle feathers that I have in my possession, these were all found. And many of them I actually know the eagles that they came from, because we lived, for a number of years, we lived close to 2 eagles that would nest, and we had lots of feathers. So I'm very fortunate that I have eagle feathers. As well, a part of the tradition, the local tradition with eagle feathers, is that when you find an eagle feather, often you will be prompted spiritually to pass it along, usually within a year. So I've also done that for many of my eagle feathers, and I've gone years without having any eagle feathers. So that's a part of it too. A part of passing along the eagle feathers is understanding that having a particularly special feather doesn't elevate your spiritual status in any way, particularly if you found it, unless it was given to you in a particular spiritual ritual. So really, your relationship to your found materials, in again, Eurocentric white culture, we tend to think of things as, oh, I found it, it's mine forever. So I'm just putting this idea out there, this education that I've received from some of the local First Nations Nuu-chah-nulth people, that there's an idea out there that these things actually don't belong to you. And that idea really resonates with me, because spirituality it's not about elevating your status, it's about helping people and being of service. So anyway, there's my little, you see how many asides I go on? I hope you're still enjoying this. So this is the large eagle wing feather that I have right now. This, you can see it's modeled, it's gorgeous, but this would have come from a juvenile, because the color patterning is, you see this little modeling here, the juveniles look almost like golden eagles. They're really very pretty, and often they appear to be larger than the adults. If this was an adult eagle feather, it would have a bit of white here, and it would be all this consistent brown color. So this is the eagle feather, and I showed you the abalone, and I also grow some sage in my garden. So it smells amazing. I have, the sage is just thriving out here, and I will just bring it into the house just to smell. I won't necessarily burn it, but typical sage bundle, you bundle it up, and then you just set it on fire and then blow it out, and you let it smoke. And so what so that's actually a sage bundle. Okay, now I'm getting ahead of myself. So you would wrap this up with string, and you would let it dry, and then you would light it on fire. You would blow the burning flame out, and it will smoke all the way down, creating this amazing, fragrant, bluish gray smoke. And often people with smudge sticks will just use this, and they'll use their hand to waft the smoke, and you would start at the bottom and you would go upwards. But that's just one way of using sage. Another way of using sage is to dry it and then take the individual leaves. And this is the thing that I've seen Teresa Caputo do, that I thought that I would try, that never actually felt right. So you would take these dried leaves and you would place it in, and you'd set them on fire, blow it out, let it smoke, and you would place them in an abalone shell, often a very large abalone shell, depending on how much you wanted to burn. Now, for our First Nations folks, why would they put it in an abalone shell? Well, a lot of things that you're burning, the shells are actually great because they can get very hot without the thing that they're placed on setting on fire. So this is actually just a really practical dish. But again, abalone shells are symbolic of communing with the spirit world, and so for this particular ritual, placing the sage in the abalone shell while it's burning, and you can see this is the one that I actually used. You can see why this was put together as a part of the ritual. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about it because, again, this isn't my ceremony, so I'm not going to talk too much about how to do it, how it was done. I'm only going to talk about what I have seen done by other famous psychics. So what Teresa Caputo did is she had a huge abalone shell full of sage, and she was wafting the sage with her feather fan, which was turkey feathers, which, by the way, eagle feathers are great. Again, Mother Nature gives us many options, and turkey feathers are also very sacred. So are vultures. There's, crows. There's so many, you don't have to have a particular kind of feather. So again, whatever is found in your area is likely a little more appropriate. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about the particular ritual with the abalone and the sage. Because I grow the sage and I find these shells and I find the eagle feathers, I had this baseline awareness, but I hadn't really been schooled on appropriation when I was trying these things out. But honestly, it did not feel right. It didn't feel like something that I was meant to really connect with. So I wanted to put that out where that's why I don't sage. Or rather, that's why I don't smudge. I still will burn sage. This sage that I grow myself, I will dry it and I will burn it. I'll burn it in, individual little leaves. I won't use eagle feathers. I won't use the abalone shells, which I know have deep, deep spiritual significance. And I won't just burn sage. I will burn cedar. There are other... I find that when you commune in nature, when you walk around in nature, you spend a lot of time. I really love it that you guys listen to the podcast in your earbuds while you're walking in nature. That's awesome. Hi, everyone. Just make sure you're spending some time outside in nature without plugging in, because you will start to pick up these little messages from around you of what kinds of tools are out there. You will become inspired on what to use. We don't need to look to other cultures and take their rituals and try to mash them into our own lives. We are all complete spiritual beings. We are all children of the same God, or of the same creator, or however you want to see it. We are spiritually, we all come from the same place. I really do believe that. And because of that, we don't have any need to steal from someone else, especially when they are saying, hey, you know what, this does spiritual harm to me. So that's it. That's why I don't smudge. Smudging is also a ritual that involves sage bundles. It depends on the version that you're using. But smudging usually will involve singing an imitation type song. Come on, don't don't try to sound First Nations. Don't try to be First Nations. I could go off on a long rant about the use of shamanism, the word shaman, because most people who market themselves as shaman are spiritual white women. So we've got to, I gently call people out, but when people have spent thousands of dollars qualifying as a shaman, I don't know, there's a lot of debate about that term. Generally, it's an appropriated First Nations term, unless you're specifically coming from a pagan, like a pre-Christian ancestry background. But guess what? Pre-Christian white people, pagans, and etc., old school Germanic spiritual tradition doesn't use the word shaman. We have, often it'll get translated to priest or priestess. So I'm putting it out there. I'm asking those of us who work in the spiritual world to please pay attention to the responsibility that we have. If we're going to work in this energy, if we're going to work, especially in mediumship, where we talk to spirits and where we're practicing this deep, important, incredibly privileged work, we need to take responsibility for what has happened in the past, and we need to honor what we want to see in the future. And it's, I think that we do that by elevating the voices of people who are actively oppressed. And I think it's about recognizing the privilege that we have, and recognizing the difficulties that we have too. I'm not recognizing that there's no one who's perfectly privileged. I have a friend who's extremely wealthy, was born into wealth, and she experienced a lot of difficulties that I never would have thought would occur to someone just because they're wealthy. And it's been very difficult for her to make her own money and make her own way because everybody knows who she is. So she couldn't just get a job as a teenager. She wasn't able to have these normal teenage experiences because everyone knew who she was. So it's, I want to say, like, not even those people who are incredibly privileged and were raised to respect the privilege that they have as a responsibility and are working within that responsibility. Nobody's life is ever perfect and easy. That is not what I'm saying. But I think it is very important for those of us who do have a privileged status in society to really recognize it. And that can have to do with your socioeconomic status, because there are social determinants just to health. And health is also a huge privilege. I'm going to tell you about my health journey, some other podcast, some other video. So I think it's important to not just count our blessings every day. Keep a gratitude journal, that's such an important part in connecting and in creating more good things in your life. Count your blessings, be grateful for things, but count your privilege too. Be aware of how advantaged you are, what advantages you have in the society, so that you can become sensitized to the needs of the people that don't have those same advantages. And then you can chime in and do your duty. When I'm not going to give you examples of that. You can be creative, even if it's just making someone's day by buying them coffee. If you see someone's having a rough day, if someone is having a rough day, they're in a low moment, you can do something nice for them. And if you're able to, sometimes you can do monetary favors for people, support people in a monetary way, and that can really change someone's life. And depending on where you are in your privilege, just be honest about that, because that reckoning with yourself is truly an important spiritual practice. So I think that is where I'm going to end it for now, because as usual, I've gone on all sorts of tangents. I hope that you enjoy this video. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Joyful Telepathy podcast. If you would like to book a session with me, you can visit TofinoPsychic.com. And I will put a link to all of the things and all of the places where I am. I'll put that link down in the show notes for you. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me speak, and I hope that you've enjoyed seeing me speak. Hi, maybe I'll do more of this. Anyway, everyone have a great day.